I just found an AirTag hidden in my car. My boyfriend put it there to track my every move because he was convinced I was cheating. My phone lit up with a notification I'd never seen before: AirTag found moving with you. My heart just stopped. When I opened the notification, it showed a map, with a trail of red dots tracing my entire path, from my office, to the grocery store, to the gym, everywhere. This wasn't some mistake. This was a calculated violation of my trust by the person I thought loved me. This is the story of how I found it, how I confronted him, and how I realized I wasn't in a relationship, I was under surveillance. Looking back, it's wild because in the beginning, he felt like a dream come true. We met through a friend, and the connection was just instant. He was charming, so attentive, and he had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the world. Things moved fast, a total whirlwind of intense dates and deep conversations that went until 3 in the morning. In retrospect, that speed should have been a red flag. Abusive relationships often start like a fairy tale, moving so quickly that the abuser can establish control before you have a chance to see them for who they really are. He was a master at making his control look like he was just caring for me. In the first few months, he'd text me good morning and good night without fail. If I didn't answer within an hour or so, he'd call, and his voice would be laced with this practiced concern. "Hey, just wanted to make sure you were okay." I was starting to get worried. At the time, I thought it was sweet. My friends would say things like, "Wow, he's so into you," and I totally believed it. I told myself he was just a worrier, that maybe he'd been hurt before and just needed extra reassurance. I didn't see it for what it was, the first strings of a web he was weaving to know where I was at all times. He learned my schedule down to the minute. He knew I left for work at 8:15 a.m., took lunch at 12:30 p.m., and had yoga on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If I deviated from that schedule at all, the questions would start. They always sounded casual, of course, wrapped up in a joke or a loving tone. If I got home 10 minutes late, it would be, "Traffic must have been crazy, huh?" But there was always an edge to it. He wasn't really asking about my day, he was checking my story. He was testing me. I remember this one night so clearly, about 6 months in. I went out for dinner with my best friend, Sarah. We were having an amazing time, just catching up, and I completely lost track of time. My phone started buzzing on the table, and I saw a string of texts from him. "Having fun. Wish I was there. Getting pretty late, is everything okay?" And then the one that made my stomach knot up: "You still at the restaurant?" I showed Sarah, trying to laugh it off. "He worries so much," I said. She didn't laugh back. She just looked at me for a second and said, "That's a lot." When I got home, he was waiting up for me on the couch. He didn't look mad, just disappointed, which was almost worse. "You were gone for a while," he said. It wasn't quite an accusation, but it hung in the air like one. I started to explain how great it was to see Sarah, how we just got caught up talking. He cut me off with a smile. "It's okay. I just miss you when you're gone." He pulled me in for a hug, and I let all that uneasiness just melt away. This is love, I told myself. This is what it feels like to be cared for. I didn't realize that making you feel guilty for spending time with friends and family is a classic isolation tactic. He was slowly trying to shrink my world until he was the only thing left in it. I rationalized every single red flag, convincing myself his jealousy was passion and his possessiveness was just proof of how much he loved me. The little signs I'd been so good at explaining away started becoming impossible to ignore. The shift was so gradual I almost didn't see it happening, but the feeling in my gut was loud and clear. I was anxious all the time, constantly walking on eggshells, carefully picking my words to avoid setting off another round of his quiet, suffocating suspicion. It started with the jokes. We'd be watching a movie where a character cheated, and he'd turn to me and say, "You'd never do that to me, right?" With a little laugh that never quite reached his eyes. Or I'd mention a new guy at work, and he'd quip, "Should I be worried? Is he trying to steal my girl?" They were designed to sound lighthearted, but they were jabs, constant reminders that I was being judged. Accusations disguised as humor that wore me down until I started to question myself. Then, the interrogations began. My phone wasn't my own anymore. He'd casually pick it up while I was in the shower. If I put it face down on the table, he'd ask, "Hiding something?" It was never a direct fight, just these passive-aggressive comments that forced me onto the defensive. He'd ask to use my phone to look something up, and I'd catch him swiping over to my recent calls or messages. When I'd call him out, he would flip it back on me. "Why are you so defensive? If you have nothing to hide, what's the big deal?" He was a pro at making me feel like I was the crazy one. That's gaslighting, twisting the situation to make you doubt your own perception of reality. His jealousy got so much worse. He started going after my friends. Sarah, my best friend, was suddenly a bad influence. He'd say things like, "Every time you hang out with her, you come back with an attitude." He was trying to cut me off from my support system to gain more control. He'd get upset if I didn't answer his calls right away, framing it as him being worried about me. But it wasn't concern, it was a demand for constant access. The real turning point was a Tuesday night. I was supposed to be at yoga, but the instructor cancelled last minute. A few of us from the class decided to grab a smoothie nearby instead. It was totally spontaneous and harmless. I sent him a quick text, "Yoga's cancelled, grabbing a smoothie with the girls. Home soon." I didn't think twice about it. When I walked in the door an hour later, the mood in our apartment was icy. He was standing in the kitchen with his arms crossed. "No hello. How was yoga?" he asked, his voice flat. "I told you, it got cancelled." "We went to get smoothies," I said, my heart starting to pound. "Right. The girls," he said, actually using air quotes. "Anyone I know?" "Just some people from class, you don't know them." "So, you went out with a bunch of strangers and didn't think to call me?" he pressed. "I texted you." My voice was rising now. "They're not strangers, they're people from my yoga class. What is this even about?" And then he said it. "I just have a hard time believing you, okay? It all seems a little too convenient. Class gets cancelled, and suddenly you're out with people I don't know. How do I know you weren't somewhere else? With someone else?" I was just stunned. The accusation was so ugly, so venomous. He was calling me a liar and a cheater, right to my face. He, the person who was supposed to love me, was building this entire fake narrative in his head where I was constantly betraying him. He never even apologized for that fight. He just sulked for 2 days, making me feel like I was the one who did something wrong. After that night, the trust was completely shattered. I knew, deep down, that something was fundamentally broken. I just didn't know how broken yet. I just had this constant buzz of anxiety, this feeling I was being watched. I just didn't have the proof. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was on my way home from work, listening to a podcast with my phone connected to the car's Bluetooth. Suddenly, the audio cut out. A notification popped up on my screen. I glanced down at a red light, and the message sent a chill down my spine. "AirTag found moving with you." I was confused for a second. An AirTag? I didn't own one. I knew they were those little trackers people put on their keys. I figured it had to be a glitch, or maybe I was picking up a signal from the car next to me. I dismissed it. But a few minutes later, it popped up again. This time, I tapped on it. My podcast was gone, replaced by the Find My app. And there it was. A map showing my location, with a pulsing blue dot that was me in my car. But trailing behind me was a dotted red line, mapping my entire journey from my office parking garage. It showed every turn I made. It showed the detour I took for dry cleaning. It showed my every single move. I swear the air left my lungs. My blood ran cold. I felt so sick I had to pull over into a pharmacy parking lot. My mind was racing. This wasn't a glitch. That red line was a record of my day, which meant the owner of that AirTag could see exactly where I was. And in that instant, I knew. There was only one person in my life who was this paranoid, this obsessed with knowing where I was. It was him. My hands were shaking as I stared at the map. The feeling of being violated was physical. It felt like my own personal space, my car, my life, had been invaded. He didn't trust me so much that he resorted to this, planting a secret spy in my car. All the fights, the questions, the jokes, it all slammed together into this one horrifying picture. He was actively trying to catch me doing something wrong. The shock turned into rage. This hot, furious energy just surged through me. I got out of my car right there in that parking lot and started tearing it apart. I wasn't going home. I couldn't. I tore open the glove compartment, throwing old receipts and napkins everywhere. Nothing. I got on my hands and knees, looking under the seats, my fingers brushing against dust and old fries. Still nothing. I popped the trunk, pulled up the floor mat, checked the spare tire well. Nothing. I was getting frantic, almost hysterical. Was I wrong? Was I the crazy one after all? And then I remembered reading a story about this exact thing happening to someone else. Sometimes they hide them on the outside. I walked to the back of my car and crouched down. I ran my hand along the inside of the bumper. Nothing. Then, the other side. My fingers hit something small, round, and cold. It was stuck there, held on by some kind of heavy-duty tape. I pulled at it, my nails scraping against the plastic, until it came free. There it was, sitting in my shaking palm. A small, white disc, no bigger than a quarter, with a little Apple logo on it. It looked so harmless. But in that moment, it was the most evil thing I had ever seen. It was the proof. It was the end. Holding that little white disc, my whole world just shattered. It was so much more than a piece of plastic. It was proof of a complete and total betrayal. If you've ever had your trust broken, or just had that gut feeling that something is seriously wrong, hit that subscribe button. Because what I did next changed everything. I didn't go home. I couldn't. The thought of going back to our apartment, our supposed sanctuary, made me feel sick. I drove to a park nearby, the AirTag sitting on the passenger seat like a tiny, silent bomb. I just needed to breathe and think. The shock was hardening into a cold, clear resolve. This was over. There was no discussion, no excuse, no coming back from this. I decided not to call him. This had to be face to face. He needed to see the proof in my hand and the look on my face when he tried to lie his way out of it. And it was going to be on my terms. I texted him, "Meet me at the cafe on Main Street in 20 minutes. We need to talk." I got there first and picked a table in the corner. When he walked in, he was smiling, like it was just any other day. He leaned in to kiss me, and I turned my head so he just got my cheek. His smile faltered. "Everything okay?" he asked, that fake concerned look on his face that I could now see right through. I didn't say anything. I just reached into my purse, pulled out the AirTag, and placed it on the table between us. It made a small, sharp click on the wood. His eyes darted down to it, and for just a flash of a second, I saw it, pure panic. But he covered it up with a mask of confusion. "What's that?" "You tell me," I said, my voice quiet and steady. "I found it stuck inside my car's bumper this afternoon." He laughed. It was a hollow, terrible sound. "Why are you showing me this? I've never seen it before." "Stop," I said. "Just stop lying. My phone told me. AirTag found moving with you. It showed me a map, Alex. A map of my whole day. I know it was you." He tried to hold the act together for another second. "That's insane. Why would I ever do that?" "Because you're paranoid," I shot back. "Because you're so convinced I'm cheating that you decided to play detective and track me like some kind of criminal." His face finally crumpled. The denial was gone, replaced by a desperate attempt to justify it. "It wasn't like that," he said, his voice dropping low. "Okay, fine. I did it. But I did it because I was worried about you. I just wanted to make sure you were safe." I just stared at him. "Safe? You don't hide tracking devices on someone's car for their safety. You did this for your peace of mind, not my safety." This was about control. Some partners try to claim tracking is for theft protection or safety, but it's really about distrust and control. "You've just been so distant," he pleaded, reaching for my hand. I yanked it away. "You're always on your phone, you're always busy. I was going crazy thinking I was losing you. I did it because I love you so much." And there it was. The ultimate manipulation. blaming his toxic, controlling behavior on his love for me. But the spell was finally broken. I wasn't that insecure girl anymore, the one who would accept any excuse just to keep things calm. I saw him for exactly what he was, a man so eaten up by his own insecurity that he would destroy my privacy to make himself feel better. "No," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "This isn't love. Love doesn't feel like being a suspect in your own life. This is possession. And I am done." I stood up. He was trying to squeeze out some tears, but they had no effect on me. I felt nothing but a huge, empty space where my love for him used to be. "We are over, Alex. Go home, pack your things, and be gone by the time I get there." I walked out of that cafe and didn't look back. I got in my car, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could actually breathe again. That night was one of the hardest of my life, but it was also the first night of my freedom. Ending it was gut-wrenching, but it was also the ultimate act of self-respect. I chose my sanity over his control. Looking back, the red flags were everywhere. The constant need to know where I was, the jealousy he disguised as concern, the way he would subtly put down my friends to isolate me. These are all classic signs of a controlling relationship. I ignored them because I wanted to believe in the dream, not the reality. This taught me a terrifying lesson. Devices like AirTags are meant to find lost keys, but they can be turned into tools for stalking and abuse. And this isn't just a bad breakup story anymore. The law is catching up. In Florida, for example, a 2024 law made unauthorized tracking a third-degree felony, which could mean up to 5 years in prison. And as of 2025, they've introduced even stricter penalties, making it a second-degree felony with up to 15 years in prison if the tracking is used to commit a violent crime. The laws vary by state. In Texas, it might be a Class A misdemeanor, but the message is getting clearer. If you ever get that accessory moving with you notification, do not ignore it. Trust your gut. You can use the Find My app to play a sound to locate the device. If you find an AirTag, you can disable it instantly by twisting the back cover off and taking out the battery. And most importantly, if you feel you are in any danger, call the police. Leaving a relationship like this is hard, but staying is so much harder. You deserve someone who trusts you and respects you, someone who makes you feel safe, not surveilled. You deserve a love that feels like freedom, not like a cage. My story had a clear ending, but for so many people, this is a real, ongoing nightmare. I want this to be a place where we can talk about these things. So, I want to ask you, what would you have done? Have you or anyone you know been through something like this? Share your stories in the comments, because these conversations matter. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe. You are not alone.